Hi there. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Tinnitist TV. Today, I'm talking to Rik Emmett. You know, for rock stars, aging gracefully is often easier said than done. But to his credit, former Triumph singer-guitarist Emmett has handled it far better than most. Unlike many of his peers, he has zero interest in rounding up his old bandmates, squeezing back into those spandex pants, and touring classic rock festivals and casinos just to bolster his bank balance and his ego. Instead, he's happily backed away from the spotlight and transitioned into life as an academic and author, while keeping one foot in the music world with the occasional new album. But don't mistake his slower pace for a lack of drive. In fact, Emmett's latest project, 10 Telecaster Tales, a new book inspired by his love of the classic Fender guitar, the creation of a Tele-style axe he just had custom built, and the album he wrote and recorded on it, is clearly his most ambitious endeavor in years. Shortly before the book and LP were released, Emmett zoomed in from home to talk Telecasters, his golden years, what comes next, and yes, spandex pants. Enjoy. It's actually it's good to talk to you again. It's been many years. I think the last time we talked was at least a decade ago, and it was undoubtedly about something Triumph related. So,
Yes, well, it comes up in every conversation. It's an unavoidable thing.
no, I would imagine it. But I'm pleased to be talking to you about this today, about 10 Telecaster Tales, because it's definitely one of the more unique projects. Not only that, obviously, that you've put out, but that I've seen in a long time. I can't think of anybody who's really done something like this. That's a book about an album that's devoted to a guitar that you had specially made. Did this all come to you in sort of one grand, 2001 like epiphany, or
No,
what?
Leonard Cohen once said, look, if I knew where the good songs came from, don't you think I'd go and visit there more
Yeah.
often? And I think the truth about an idea on this kind of scale is that it comes in degrees. I we're talking about getting the guitar made, and then I'm writing some pieces, and then I'm thinking, hey, boy, wouldn't it be cool if I sort of waited until the guitar's done, and then I could see if the guitar might be good for the recording of these pieces. And then, I had a book deal with ECW Press. My editor is a guy named Michael Holmes, and I had made a deal. Like, I had originally, way back, written a poetry book,
Right.
and when I was going to shop it around, I thought, no one's going to want to buy a poetry book from a faded old rock star. But if I dangle the golden carrot of a memoir to a small press kind of place, they might go, ooh, a memoir. So when I talked to him, I said, I'll give you a 2-book deal. You put out the poetry book for me, and I'll give you a memoir a year later, kind of thing. And he went, okay, awesome, great. So I had done that deal. And now I have this thing up and running where I'm an author. I've written books, and I have an actual legit publisher that sort of believes in me. And Michael and I, we get along like a couple of houses on fire. He's a guitar player. So the idea of this thing with the 10 Telecasters, it was sort of bubbling under. And then I talked to Michael and I said, I've always loved liner notes. I've always loved the idea of albums and in gatefolds, and you could do all this great stuff, and a story could be told. And I said, I think there's a story to this. I think, and maybe I can even, pump it up into a book, a full book. And he went, hey man, that sounds incredible. What a great idea. Now, I have to say, ECW Press was also the publisher that had done some of Neil Peart's books from Rush. So I think that sort of idea of highfalutin kinds of packages that are, taking on extra dimensions, it was almost like second nature to them. They go, yeah, sure, we can do this. This is no sweat. So one thing led to another, and then we now have this. We'll give a screenshot. There we go.
There you
Now,
go.
it originally, just so I can full disclosure here. It originally came out in a hardcover that had the CD in the back, and it was a deluxe thing. I don't know if any of them are left. I think they all kind of got sold out when they got announced. But that was just a bucket list thing. That was literally like, someday I'd like to have a hardcover book. And how many people read books nowadays? How many people buy hardcovers? Oh, I'll wait till the paperback comes out. I'll wait until I can put it on my Kindle. So that's a different kind of an ambition that was sort of at the heart of it. Like someday I'd like to have a hardcover book. And wouldn't it be cool if it had gilding and, so anyhow, it grew, and that's not atypical for me. That's sort of standard that things would grow in scope.
Was there no point at when you kind of went, maybe I bit off a little more than I can chew here with all of this?
No, but I'll tell you this, Daryl. I decided I wanted to go out and play these things live, and and I had retired from touring, and so now I'm rehearsing every day because I've got some of these live appearances coming up, and in April 10 and 11, I'm playing the Redwood Theater in Toronto. They're sold out. Tickets are sold out, but I got to learn this repertoire so that I can play it live. It's one thing to record it; it's a whole other thing to get your chops back up for a repertoire and play a whole night of stuff. And I got to admit, at 71 years of age, there's a part of me where I'm going, maybe I bit off more than I can chew. But I do think if you're going to be an artist and you're going to call yourself an artist, then you do have to kind of push yourself and take some chances and do some things that don't feel comfortable. So sometimes you do got to cram a couple of donuts in your mouth and see if you can't chew them up and swallow them. Probably shouldn't be donuts. You should probably chew up a couple of carrots and try.
You talk about your hands in the book and how you've had the beginnings of I believe it's rheumatoid arthritis. So how is that holding up in terms of rehearsing now and trying to get out and play live?
Not 100%. When I steeple my fingers like this, I can feel that there's some sort of. And when I went to see my rheumatologist recently, he said, "Man, maybe it's not rheumatoid. Maybe it's psoriatic because you're getting these skin patches and you're getting all these." And she go, "Well, maybe it's both." He goes, "Well," he says, "your right knee for sure. That's osteo. That's that's where you go. Oh, so I apparently I have now a rainbow collection of arthritis."
Wow. You got the whole package.
Yeah, but I think this is just one of the things about aging that you have to sort of be adjusting and the meds that I take, you go, well, maybe not this one. Maybe I should try something new. Maybe I'll try to vary the amount that I take, So I don't know, I'm not going to become a real grumpy old man. I just saved that for my wife, but publicly and even sort of philosophically, I kind of go, I think it matters if I have a positive attitude about things and I try to see the positive sides of things. And my wife would say, well, I don't see much evidence of that, you grumpy old man. But I do think that that's an important part of all of it. So, if my hands are getting in the way of me trying to do something, then I got to say, okay, well, maybe I need to rehearse more so that I'm more warmed up. Maybe I need to change the part a little bit so that it's not, I figure out a way to be able to do it,
I mean, I appreciate a certain level, well, you mentioned it in the book, that it adds a certain level of urgency to some of these projects in terms of making them a now or never kind of affair.
That's true. And another part of it is not just urgency, but well, if you can, then probably you should,
Right.
So there's almost like a duty or an obligation to what I can and can't do. Like, I was just on the phone with a friend and we were making jokes about, seniors moments, and
Right.
how you just don't quite have the mental acuity that you had, even last week. Never mind 5 years or 10 years ago. Never mind when I was a rock star prancing around, you know, uh, where I had all of this cockiness, all that, well, this is the way it'll always be. And then, you get to the other side of 70 and you go, yeah, so that wasn't right. you know, I can see, this sort of, and I don't want to call it degradation, but it is, but I'm going to think of it as sort of just adjusting my ambition, adjusting my horizons, it's all good. This is life.
Right.
Look, I lost, my older brother died when he was 62, 63. My younger brother died when he was 49.
Wow.
So yeah, my mom died when she was 70, so I'm outliving her. My dad made it to 92, so but he didn't make it with his brain. Alzheimer's had already made it so that it was not a pretty sort of way to go. So I have a fairly good, I think, realistic sort of sense of where I'm at, and that affects the choices I make. So as you say, you
Right.
know, if I can do the project, I'm going to try to take it on. And as soon as I go, yeah, that's not for me anymore, then I'll stop. I'll do something else.
Right. And that is such an interesting notion, and I want to get a little more into that. But I think let's go back to where this sort of to what well to what's at the center of this whole thing, which is that guitar that is sitting beside you, this Telecaster. I totally understand your romantic attachment to the Telecaster, given that it was the first guitar you bought and owned and played. But that's obviously not all there is to it. In the book, you talk a lot about the other qualities inherent in a Telecaster, and you use words like honesty and authenticity. And for people who don't play guitar or can't quite get it, what is it that defines and makes a Telecaster a Telecaster, and how is playing it unique from playing another guitar? Is it a tone thing? Is it a tactile thing? What is it?
It is all of those things and
Hmm.
more. And so, I mean, first of all, it was the first solid body electric guitar that really became a widespread popular, available for retail kind of a thing. And it had a really skinny, bright sound. That was the Fender thing, almost like a pedal steel guitar. So when the guitar is clean and it's running through a clean amp setting, it has this kind of like it's clean, it's snappy, it's bright. So it was good for country, it was good for funk. And then, of course, rock and roll came along, and you can put it on the back pickup, and the back pickup of a Tele bites like crazy. Now, having said all that, this particular guitar that I designed, it is ergonomically different than a Fender Telecaster because I have a Gibson Les Paul scale length and bridge and humbucking pickups on it. So I took two guitars that I love, Telly's and Les Pauls, and I kind of created a hybrid. But and because that was ergonomics, like this has a bevel in the top corner,
Right.
and it has a belly sculpt in the back,
Yeah.
and it's Gibson scale length, so it's a little bit buttery, a little easier to play, but it still has telly quality to the sound. So when I put this in the middle pickup position, I know there's a tune on the record called Funky Scratching, and it has this. And that kind of style of playing was really popular when I was a teenager in Toronto, first starting out. Robbie Robertson had played with Ronnie Hawkins, and he sort of inspired Donnie Troiano, and Dominic Troiano sort of became this guitar hero in the Toronto market. Before there was such a thing as guitar heroism, this guy was the guy, and he had a Tele, and it was like everybody went, "Oh, got to get a Tele," and you could afford a Tele. A Les Paul was going to cost you, a used Les Paul would be $500 or $600, whereas a Tele you could get for a couple of hundred.
Right.
So most guys, it was the entry level thing, but it was already professional. It was the first guitar I had when I was playing weddings and bar mitzvahs. When I got my union card, I was still, maybe 18, 19, but yeah, it was sort of the thing that was, if people saw me holding it and playing it, they went, "Oh, he's a professional guitar player." Like it had that image, it had that aura about it. So all of those things, I always felt like, and in the book I talk about this, guys that are Telecaster guys, and maybe some of the latest sort of jazz guys would be Bill Frisell and Julian Lage. Those guys, they talk about the fact that the guitar has an honesty, it has an ability to sort of speak across genres, and you can just plug it into an amp and then turn the amp up and go. And when you go, that guitar is going to be something that you're going to have to really work to show what you've got, because it doesn't really cut you any slack. It's not like, guys that are playing through stacks of Marshalls and a bunch of pedals on the floor. And, that's not what a Tele does. A Tele goes, "Look, just bring it right down to a basic, simple thing and show me what you got." And there was a famous Canadian jazz guitarist named Ed Bickert. And a Tele was not necessarily known as a jazz guitar, but he made it sound like it was the best jazz guitar on the planet. And he's not the only one. There were other guys too. But at the same time, all the guys in the Wrecking Crew in LA, they all had Teles, and they would use them from time to time on almost anything. All the guitar players that played in the house band at Motown, they all had Teles. They used them all the time on all those records, So one of the big ones was Steve Cropper, when he played on Soul Man, and when he played the Green Onions. That's a Tele. And you go, well, there's nothing wrong. That guitar playing on those records is as fresh and clean and great here in 2025 as it was the day he cut it, because it's a Tele doing what a Tele does.
I'm kind of amazed that it took you this long to get around to having this guitar made. It seems like something that you would have done decades ago,
Well, I'm gonna just lean over here. Can you see the guitars in the background there? Can you?
Sure.
There's a lot of Teles, and they're different types, and they got different pickups, and they got, like, I have a disease, which is, guitaritis. They call it a GAS, guitar acquisition syndrome. And, you're talking about this particular guitar here, but there's a Canadian company called Godin Guitars, and they're doing a prototype for me now so that they can put out one of these that people can order. And,
I was going to ask if you were doing that, because to me it seems, and I don't want to get technical here, but you've made enough changes in the thing that does it really qualify as a Telecaster anymore? It seems to me that it's more of an Emmett caster.
Oh, that's very nice of you to say, and it's true. But it is interesting that this year Fender put out a new Tele. It's a new, I don't know, deluxe whatever, the Deluxe 2 or something, and it's got the body sculpts that that I did. Like, finally they've put this bevel in the back corner. Everybody's old Tele was all worn down here because they had a square edge, and everybody would be rubbing an elbow on it forever until you finally maybe took a wood rasp and took a little off to round it off. So they finally did it themselves. And there's a million different kinds of Teles out there. Every company makes one now. But I think, I can't be sure about this, but I think the idea of taking a Gibson scale length and putting it on a Tele, that may be something that's relatively not widespread. That's a new thing, I think. Certainly the pickups that I choose, the bridge, although when Godin does theirs, this guitar, I've got this, I don't know if you can you hear that? I had a lot of string travel from the bridge back to where the grommets are. And
Right.
when I play and I'm not muting that, I can hear this pingy stuff going on. And I go, that's no good. I got to get a different bridge. So I've been talking to Godin about a different bridge. So nothing ever stays the same, Dale.
Uh-huh.
I would like to make this point for your American audience, that, as much as there is a president sitting in your White House and a group of people in red hats that think that you got to go back in time, that's not how time works.
No.
Time moves forward and things evolve and things change. And that's what we have to learn how to do as human beings. You can't go back. You can't. You got to move forward. So evolution is constantly occurring. And that's why I think I'll always have guitar disease, that I'm going to be going, what about a purple one?
do you still have the first one?
I still have my first electric and my first acoustic. They're in my basement. They hang on the wall. They are truly relics. The acoustic is no longer playable. And the electric, at one point with a friend of mine, when I was, I think, just out of high school, we decided to take a bandsaw to it because we thought, oh, wouldn't a teardrop shape be really cool? So,
Oh no.
yeah, we ran it through a bandsaw, and then we decided, let's make the headstock sort of be like a flying V. Let's cut out the middle. So it was bad, and it was a disaster. And so with a great deal of shame, I hide it in my basement, and I don't bring it out where people can see it.
I hear you. So, going back to what you're talking about philosophically and the evolution and the movement of time, this is all stuff that's in the book. The book is, for people who are thinking maybe they're just getting a straight up memoir or they're getting some sort of just thing about you making a guitar. It is not that. It is, as you talk about in the book, there's a lot of layers and a lot of levels and stories within stories. And I mean, there's memoir and there's music in it, obviously, but there's metaphysics, there's philosophy. I mean, at one point you go from talking about the wooden carousel horse in your studio there to Laura Nero, to the Bible, to Chariots of Fire, to the British hymn that the line is from, to the Blake poem that they took it from. I mean, that's some real rabbit hole shit going on there, Rik.
Well, all I can say is thank you, sir. Yes. And you're one of the first interviews that I've done where you're talking about this stuff on that level. And I must say, I really do appreciate it. Like, that is the way my mind works. And
it's amazing you get anything done.
Yeah, well, when I taught college for, a couple of decades, sure. Not full time, but, I would go in at the beginning of the week, teach my classes, go out on the road on the weekends. And I loved doing it. But I would tell my students, like first couple of classes, I would say, look, I am tangent man. And, things are going to pop into my head. And I'm professing here. I'm lecturing. So when I get up in front of you and I pontificate, I'm going to go where my ideas lead me. But what I'd like you to understand is if you have a liberal mind, if you have an open mind, then that's what you're going to want to do too. You want to have a mind like this so that you don't really ever take anything for granted. You're looking to see what might influence your ideas in order to try and make your idea become better. And in truth, I think that kind of tangential thinking, look, I would sit on curriculum committees and there would be academics and they did not have minds like mine. They had minds that were exactly the opposite. Right. They're incredibly literal minded kinds of, here's the parameters and I'm not stepping outside the parameters. But I thought it was great for them to be on a committee with me because I needed that discipline was a good thing and they were seeing things the way I didn't. But they would see the value in having a guy. Yeah, like there's an integrity in having, lots of different ideas and opinions and arriving at a kind of a collaborative, compromise. That's how good things work,
It's how
And I would
music
say,
works. It's how everything has to be. Going it alone. I mean, despite the fact that you, like me, are a cancer, and we carry our shell on our back and are quite happy to go it alone on a lot of things. It's all about collaboration in the end, right?
yeah, especially in the sense that I am an artist, and in the
Yeah.
end, I need an audience. I need somebody that likes what I'm doing. So I've got to try to figure out a way to compromise and collaborate with them.
Right.
I'm not going to cater to them. I'm not going to give them exactly what they want because, I want to try to satisfy myself in my endeavors. But yeah, I mean, the idea of this multi-layering kind of oh my God, it's metaphysical. Um, that was what I wanted to try to do. It's what I hoped to achieve with the book. I mean, the subtitle of it is liner notes.
Right.
So you're really just starting out from a point of going, okay, so you have this album, but the making of albums is something I've done all my life. And you know how do you write the music that goes into an album? And then when you start doing liner notes, and you're going, what else is it that I like about liner notes? Well, I liked when they talked about where did the guy grow up, and
Hmm.
what were his influences. And so it's got a premise, but then the premise is going to explode, and the explosion is the fun part of it. Like it's going to get messy and it's going to get weird, and man, that's life. Life is messy
Yeah.
and weird, and it's unpredictable. And so I'd kind of like to have a book that is kind of like life, and the way my brain the way my brain works.
I feel for your editor. I mean, did you start off with, like, did you hand him this thing that was 800 pages of the ramblings of Rick, and you had to whittle it down,
No,
or
no,
okay.
not this time. The memoir was more like that.
Uh,
But no, this book, and now that I've had a few cracks at writing books, and don't forget, I wrote magazine columns for Guitar
sure.
Player magazine for 13 years, so I knew it had to fit on a page, had to be so many words. Oh, they might want to put an ad or two on the same page so that they're going to get back to me and they're going to say we chopped the shit out of it. And
Yeah.
I saw my stuff get the shit chopped out of and go,
Sure.
okay, so I got to learn to be more succinct, and I can be,
Right.
but if I'm going to go into depth, then, I'm going to go
Well,
into depth. And
yeah.
that's what a book is for. So, no, in fact, in this book, at a certain point, they did bring in an editor. My guy, that's my sort of editor in chief, he didn't have the time for it, and he was busy doing other stuff. He said, we just hired this new person. She's great, blah 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 blah. And then when I saw the first chapter that she took a pass at, I got back to Michael Holmes. I said, Michael, that's not going to fly with me. That's not my voice.
Uh,
That's not the way I wrote it.
right.
I think you're going to have to let me edit. And he goes, absolutely, Rick. You just go ahead and be your own editor and do another pass through and clean it up a bit. And I went,
Hmm.
okay. And then I made a final pass. Well, when you get proofs,
Yeah.
you can go through it again, and there's little things you can clean up and change. But by and large, man, that's my voice and my editing, and that's the way Michael likes it. That's the way ECW Press likes it, generally speaking. If you can do it for yourself, they want you to.
Yeah, well,
Um,
good job. I mean, because it is in your voice. That's obvious from the reading, and it reads well. There's not a lot of musicians who are necessarily as good writers as they are at their other craft.
yes.
And for one, I like the tangent stuff. I think, honestly, if your next book and or music and or whatever project is not called Tangent Man, you're really missing the opportunity there, buddy.
Yeah. Well, I'll make a note in my notebook after we finish talking, and I'll just go, oh, attention, man. Yeah. Well, what can I tell you? Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
am what I am, and that's all. I'm Popeye. I
There
am
you
what
go.
I am, and that's all that I am.
What I wanted to talk to you a bit about is the way your life has changed. Because I think it's fair to say for most people who were, quote unquote rock stars, they find it hard to give up. They are either unable or unwilling to evolve and change and relinquish the spotlight and the roles that they had. You see them as well as much as I do. The guys who are out there, and it's one more tour, and it's one more album, and then there are those artists. Maybe they're out there, they've been there too long. You go to see them, and you go, oh, geez, that was there aren't role models, I guess is what I'm saying, for what you've done. Where did it
Well,
come to you from,
again, I'm just trying, like, there's words that enter into our, culture, like, he has great integrity,
Mm-hmm.
it, and I don't do it, oh, he's very genuine, he's, those kinds of words. And I go, well, that just comes naturally to me. He's very authentic. And honestly and truthfully, to answer your question, and to also give other folks the benefit of the doubt, I guess a guy that's, been the lead singer in Motley Crue, he's still being authentic because that's really all he can do. And he can't do it very well anymore, based on what he used to be able to do. Split jumps off the drum riser and screeching like a barn owl, like, and he can't do that anymore, but he's going to try to do what he can do to try to match that energy of that kind of a rock star. I had no interest in that, by the time it was 1988 and I'd been in Triumph for 13 years, I'd had enough. And I didn't really want, that's not to say I didn't go out on the road after that and play lots and lots of shows where I was the guy that used to be the guy, and that's why I got the gig.
Right.
You're gonna play Magic Power and fight the good fight, right? You're gonna, yeah, you're gonna play Lay It on the Line, yes. I still do, like, as I practice the repertoire. But Magic Power used to be in the concert key of D. It's now in the concert key of A. Like, I've had to move it down a whole fourth because I just can't hit those notes anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So acting my age and being myself and trying to be true to myself, there's a compromise that has to be made there. I was always willing to make it. I was not going to try and deny it. Having said all that, I do think my trick bag was probably a little bit bigger than some of the other guys that were rock stars.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think some guys figured out ways to age pretty, like Robert Plant did a pretty good job of becoming, of reinventing and becoming somebody that looked really comfortable being in a thing with Alison Krauss. Like, he's really figured something artistic out, which is really cool. Mick Jagger is an unbelievable thing in his old age. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And now, McCartney, in the last couple of years, we have started to see that you can't sing with that kind of, and he had an incredible quality in his voice, much longer than most humans do. But here again, I'm going to have benefit of the doubt. I still love McCartney and see him in a way as a kind of a role model, in the sense that he's never lost his energy. He's never lost his enthusiasm for just getting into the music and doing the music. He can't really match the ability that he had, but there's no lack of, man, am I ever having a good time? Right. Am I ever in a really cool rock band and we're rocking out? And I can't hit the notes, but so what? You're here with me now, and we're going to share this moment. And that is a beautiful thing about rock and roll. Sometimes it's not about the execution of the notes. It's really more just a question about, is the attitude right, And I wasn't necessarily somebody that sold a lot of attitude over substance. I did want to have, some substance to the stuff that I did, but I never had the substance that, a jazz guy would necessarily have. Their intensity about what it is that they deliver on the level that they deliver it like sometimes I go, hey, can we just relax and have some fun? You know, can
Right.
we just maybe play a 12-bar blues or something here? Because whoa, I'm having a you're playing way over my head. Like Pat Metheny is one of my favorite artists on the planet, but he sometimes is playing so far over my head that I kind of go, Pat, I'm sorry, I can't stay with you. Like I don't know
Right.
where you've gone here. I can't follow what you're doing. And I'm not really enjoying it all that much, buddy. I liked it better when you were doing, you know,
Right. It's about you got
James.
to. There's a line that you got to walk, right? Because I mean, there's a million players, who can just get up there and wail away and do insane pyrotechnics and blow your mind in that sort of technical ability, but then it doesn't really necessarily fit the song or the emotion, or you're just a, I don't want to say show off because that implies something, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's style over substance.
The fine line for me is, and I think of it as monkey's typewriting. It's like you get to a point where, well, yeah, it's just unbelievable, this blinding speed that you've got. And oh my God,
Yeah.
but, what does it amount to for the people that are, in the seats? Like, there has to be this thing about, I don't think you should ever work down at an audience, and I don't think you should ever work up to an audience. Like, just
Right.
work straight at them. But they're part of the equation. The balance has got to be there so that there's an integrity for both parties involved in this thing.
And I think that's inherent in the songs on the album, though, because these are the qualities that you're kind of, and you're right about writing these songs and crafting these songs and what you wanted them to be, and you didn't want them to be guitar wankery. That was not the point. I mean, you listen to them and you go, oh, well, this man knows how to play guitar and does it quite well. But it's not that, that display of virtuosity is not the thing that is meant to be spotlit in these
Thank
songs.
you. And part of it is, the vehicle was tunes. I was going to write songs, so
Yeah.
they're not elaborate kinds of jazz excursions into
Right.
improvisation. Although there's a tune on the record. It's called Rio Glide, and it goes like, and the melody's like. So that's how it goes. And I had two verses, a bridge, and then a third verse, and done. And when I was recording it, I thought, it needs a solo. And I thought, yeah, but I don't want to have to, lay a guitar part down and then do an overdub. This album's not going to be, overdubs. It's just going to be one part off the floor. That's the way we're going to do it. But now that I've been working on the tune to play it live, I get through the bridge. I get through the bridge, and out of the bridge, I play this. I've got this solo thing now, and I go, well, it's like 8 bars of solo. Oh, 16 bars of solo, and I worked it out. And so if I record, and when I think we're gonna record the live thing and have a live album. And so the songs are going to show an evolution, in small ways. Some intros will be a little bit enhanced because of a live situation. And yeah, there's going to be little solos and things. But yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you, right? It's not going to remain static.
Yeah.
It has a life of its own. And sometimes the song is the thing that drags me along. Come on, your instinct was good. You should have indulged it. It was like, oh, I was in a hurry. I wanted to get finished and move along.
So you kind of said that you didn't say never, because you never say never, obviously, but you again were retired from the road and weren't touring and kind of gave off the impression you didn't have much interest in performing, and then now you're doing these shows. So I guess that kind of prompts the question of, is there some sort of scenario under which you might see yourself going further afield and doing one-off shows, not necessarily a tour to the grinding extent of the old days, but you know, is this a thing where, okay, if I can play in Toronto, I can do a show in Vancouver, I can do a show in Winnipeg, I can do a show here or there, or is that sort of still not something you want to look at?
Well, here's what's happening in my near future. You know, I'm gonna play this thing in Collingwood next Friday. Then on April 10 and 11, I'm doing the 2 shows at the Redwood. And then on middle of April, my wife and I are climbing on a plane and we're going to Paris for 5 days. And then we're going to go on a train up to Amsterdam and get on a boat. And we're going to go all the way down the Danube with 3 couples that are friends of ours, all the way to Switzerland. And then I'm going to get on a plane and fly home. And then I'm going to sit down and reassess, because that's a lot of planes and trains and automobiles and boats now. And I kind of go, okay, that's the thing that I'd had enough of, you know.
Right.
I'd had enough
Sure.
of that. The 90 minutes on stage is, you know, that's a lot of fun, and that's what it's all about. It's great. It's all the surrounding, you know. 23 and a half hours. That's not the stuff on stage.
No, that's what everybody says. You know, I play for free. You pay me to travel.
That's it.
You know, yeah.
And yeah, which is the cliche, right?
Yeah.
So, but the one-off thing, I don't know if I'd want to travel long distances to make it happen. And we now live in an age where I think sort of if people have enough, lead time, then they'll come in from anywhere. If I say, well, I'm playing my hometown, people go, hey, let's plan our holiday and let's go there.
That's good.
So, and you know, a lot of my fans are sort of now close to retirement or early retirement, or
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So there's that. The other thing is that I really do like what I've come up with here, like a book and a CD and a you know, maybe a few little shows, and then, well, then why wouldn't I do that again? Yeah. And so I might do that again. You know, certainly I think about the fact that I've written about, I don't know, 12 or 15 tunes that are in my, you know, notebooks. And I go, well, they're songs with lyrics. And I go, well, that would be maybe an even cooler book. It wouldn't be just instrumentals. You've got lyrics now that you can kind of, you know, work off of and think about and go, well, that's a possibility. But I don't want to get out ahead of myself too far, because I want to, you know, test myself and check the litmus paper and see, you know, what we've got. Now, I will say this, my contract with ECW, they have a poetry book in the can, and it's coming out in October. It's called Leaning Into It. And it was a book that I wrote when we were in COVID, and Trump was and it was, you know, weird times. And I thought, boy, a lot of this stuff is dark, you know. So when the book was coming and they had the contract with them, and I said to Michael, I don't know, it's kind of dark. Well, Trump won the presidency.
Yeah. Welcome to dark.
Really weird again. And I go, the book is going to have a lot of vitality and currency because of what's going on in terms of economies and tariffs and like, you know, and just the politics of things is coloring almost everything in our world now, you know. So I go, okay, you know, it'll have some poignancy. It'll matter, you know. So I go, okay, good. And so that's in the near future, and you know, then we'll see what happens, you know. Every day, Daryl, I write in my notebooks. I pick up my guitar and I do a little bit of playing. I walk the dogs. I go to trivia night at the pub.
How do you do?
Yeah.
Good?
Tuesday nights, it's trivia night tonight, and I go to the pub with my daughter and her husband and a couple of their friends and my wife and I. And you can't hear yourself think. Do
you have a team name? What's your team name?
The Binge Thinkers.
I like it. I like it.
Well, all of the names of all of the, you know, everybody's got, they're kind of like somewhere between, you know, intellect and booze. You know, there's names to be had, you know. So
well, I'm just glad to hear that, you know, you've got this ambition again, because I got to be honest with you, when I was reading the book, it be, partly because of the full circle nature of, you know, coming back to your first guitar and all that, and in some of the tone, especially at the end where you're talking about your career and this and that, it almost had the feel of, you know, Jesus, he kind of putting a period on you know, the whole thing. You know, like I would not have been surprised to talk to you today and have you go, no, this is it, this is, and then I'm retiring and you'll never hear from me again, and I'll just be out walking the dog. So I'm really pleased, because it sounds to me like this has had the opposite effect. It seems like it's invigorated you and made you more, I don't know, more interested in, you know, going further with some of these things. As you say, you got some songs. That could be another book with lyrics. It's a new beginning as opposed to an end, it sounds like.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, there's so much that comes into play. You know,
Sure.
You have to sort of have your health to take on these things.
Yeah.
And you know, I've been through cancer scare and this arthritis thing, which is ongoing. So what you're perceiving in the books, that, oh geez, maybe this is the period on things and this might be the end. In a way, I feel like every project has to have some of that in it. It has to be that this may be the last kick at the can that you get. So what do you want to say? What do you know, make sure you get it out, because this may be the last chance to do it, which I think might account for the Tangent Man kind of explosion of, like, holy shit, there's a lot in there. You know, he's getting metaphysical. Well, if you were lying on your deathbed, I think you probably would have some metaphysical thoughts, you know, and I'm not getting any younger, you know, so that's part of it. But another part of it is, as you get older, and you enter into, and let's call it the third chapter, you know, the third act of life, you kind of go, okay, well, how can I do this with grace and dignity? How can I do this so that I feel like I'm doing a good job in the third act? And I go, well, then, you know, don't limit yourself. Don't make it so that you're creating artificial boundaries. Make it so that you're recognizing that there's boundaries, but you're going to push the envelope a little bit. You're going to test it to see. And I've been doing all these podcast interviews lately, and I keep raising this one, but I'll do it with you too. I saw on my Instagram feed a David Bowie clip where somebody's asking him about artistry and how does he define it. And he goes, well, I really truly think that you have to get out where the water's over your head. Right. You can't be, you know, with your feet safe. You got to get out where, you know, you're feeling like you're not sure. You're a little bit scared of what's going to be, what could happen. That's where the interesting shit happens. And in my last interview with the guy, I said, it's true, but you also have to be careful you don't swim so far out that the tide gets you and you get carried away. You know, like that.
And you become Sid Barrett.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think you do have to test yourself. And it becomes a question of, and this is to answer your question as articulately as I can, I think you have to test yourself in a way that you're not losing your grace and your dignity, and you're not putting yourself in danger, but you are fulfilling this thing of well, if this was the last thing that I got to do, I would be proud that it was. I would feel like, you know, this was a good way to go out, you know?
Yeah, exactly. No, great philosophy. And doing it like that is yeah, it's the way to do it. One last thing. I know you got other stuff to do. You got a rehearsal to begin, and I'll let you go. We've talked many years ago about what happened to all your old stage costumes, and you told me that they became, you know, costumes for your kids and their plays and all that. But Blair told me to ask you about a pair of spandex pants with a glove sewn in the crotch.
Yeah. I was in a band playing for a singer named Justin Page. Now, you know, is that a kid or is that a cat?
That's on my cat. Yeah.
Great.
She wants attention and or food.
Yeah, well, is it an old cat? Because they get
Yeah.
noisy when they get old.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, she's up there. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, what were we talking about? Okay, the glove and the yeah.
Glove in the
So
crotch.
I'm with Justin Page, and it's a glam rock band. And I get this, I audition and I get the gig, and then they sort of want people in costumes. And I had seen a David Bowie costume where it had two hands that kind of came around from his back, sort of clutching his breast like this.
Right.
And I thought, man, wouldn't it be great if I had one that came between my legs and it was holding my package? So my aunt, my mom's sister, she had these old white leather, faux leather, who knows, like cocktail gloves that come up above your elbow. So perfect. This is great. And white, okay, so if I got black, like I had one thing that was like a girl's gym leotard, like a black, I don't know if they had them when you were in high school, but when the girls were doing gymnastics and balance beam, they had to wear these black. So I had one of those black leotards with black pantyhose and a pair of Davy Crockett fringe brown boots up to my knee, and this white glove. So we stuffed it with wire, like we put wire so that it had, bracing, and then stuffed it with foam. And then my aunt and my mom sewed little snap clips so that you could attach it with little snaps through your crotch and out and up onto your thing. And then, of course, once you got the outfit stinking sweaty from being on stage, you could unsnap the glove so it wouldn't get wrecked, and you could get you could wash your clothes. And because there were two gloves, I had a left and a right. I had an outfit for the first set and an outfit for the second. One was black satin sort of pants and a vest, and one was this black leotard. So, yeah, that was the deal. And there's pictures.
I was gonna say we need to see those pictures.
Well, they're in the memoir, Lay It on the Line. There's
Oh,
a
is there one
picture
in
of
there?
me in it. Yeah,
Okay.
I think we were playing a place called the Matador in Dartmouth, and there's a very fuzzy picture, but they're nevertheless. And I used to have black eye makeup all around, running down, sort of like Alice Cooper, black lipstick that was running down, and of course, here's the thing: the drummer from that band, Dave Breckles, he and I hooked up and started having a conversation again, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, something like that. And Dave said, oh, I remember when you came to audition and then you were in the band, but you were the new guy. And he said, and we thought of you in those terms. And he said, then when you came up with that costume, all of a sudden, you were Justin's favorite. And the managers, Justin had two managers, Blair James and Frank Angelo. Frank Angelo went on to start MAC Cosmetics and became like this crazy, independently wealthy human being. But they were like two gay guys that sort of managed Justin. And Justin's whole thing was about like gay culture long before it had become mainstream. It was like, songs about rough trade and right. Lesbian. The two background singers in the band were lesbian women that wore chastity belts. And so, it was that, like a deep dive into that culture. Right. But I went, hey, cool, great, I'm in. So, and as soon as I had that costume, that culture was like, it was a group hug back. It was like, oh, Rik, you're right in here. You get what we're going for here. And Dave said the other guys in the band who were straight and were just sidemen, they're kind of going like, grumble, grumble. Rik's the teacher's pet now, I never kind of knew that, I was kind of too young to be aware of. So it was kind of fun to get Dave's perspective on that. So anyways, that's the glove story.
All right. Well, listen, my friend, thank you so much for all your time today. I really appreciate it. And thanks for the book and the album and everything else. I presume you'll be doing an audio book to add a fourth level to this whole thing.
Yes.
All right. We'll look for that. And hopefully we'll get to see you live somewhere. We'll all come to Toronto to see you at the Emmett residency somewhere.
Where are you located?
I'm in Winnipeg.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right on. Well, the last time I played Winnipeg, I think I did 2 nights with the orchestra out there.
Right.
And this was parts of Genes and Classics where I had to play, like, I think it was, some Clapton and Hendrix and, that sort of thing. But I had a friend who was in the military, and he said to me, um, Rik, let's get together for lunch. And he was, I think, a lieutenant colonel, and he'd been a flight instructor kind of guy out on the bases out there. And he said, "Would you like to go and have a look at is it NORAD or whatever it is? But it's the install. You can drive from Winnipeg and get there in 20 minutes or whatever it was." And I went, "Hell yeah!" So I got to go into this, and because he had clearance and I was his guest, I got to go into the bunker, which was Dr. Strangelove. It was unbelievable. They turn off a lot of the screens so that I can't see, because I was not, I don't have the clearance for that. But it was so that's my strongest memory of Winnipeg now is, wow, that's what these people are up to out here, Anyways. So.
Well, come back and we'll set up another bunker visit for you.
Okay.
Great. All right, man. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk to you down the road somewhere.
Thanks, man.